What need is there for romantic treatment? Real life is too romantic, too ghostly. George Wilhelm Pabst in an interview to Close Up, December of 1927. Hi, my name is Yanina. I will tell you about the gems of silent era. Today I will tell you about a film, Joyless Street, directed by J.W. Pabst. This film became a landmark of new objectivity movement in cinema. In the early years of Weimar Republic, the word Straße or street itself began to appear with notable frequency in the titles of books, paintings, poems and films. Street became a symbol of unconscious fears and desires of many people in Weimar Republic. At this moment, street films appeared. In them, street has become a destiny. It is a lure and antecedent of all poor souls who are tired of their dull homes and monotonous lives, are out for adventure and escape. But not only inexpressive desires and fears of German people influenced the emerge of street films. Important role was also played by processes of industrialization and urbanization. Researches of new modernity started to be made by means of cinema. In the fall of 1923, a serialized detective novel, Joyless Street, written by Hugo Betawer, became very popular among readers. This novel told about events on the street Melchiorstraße in Vienna during the years of inflation. The author of this book was assassinated in Vienna by right-wing extremist, the member of Nazi Party. Even in its earliest incarnation, the sensational story seemed destined for the big screen, and it was Austrian film director George Wilhelm Pabst who decided to make it. Please have a look at the head, now you know who liked this film director. Pabst and his screenwriter Wille Haas concurred at once that the film had to be geared towards the social and that the criminal elements would fall aside. Social problems and psychological characteristics of personality, that is what interested Pabst the most. And now, spoilers. Joyless Street is a film about Vienna, plagued by poverty and inflation. There are a lot of characters from different social classes here, which gives an impression of a big historical picture. 3 female protagonists from different families meet in the queue for meat. First in line is Greta. She is the daughter of the civil servant Rumford. Greta lives in the spacious apartment on the ground floor. The second girl is Maria Lechner. She is from the poor family of unemployed veteran of the First World War. She lives in the basement. And the third girl, Elsa. Poor and homeless, she lives in the stables with her husband and infant child. She is the allusion to Virgin Mary. And here comes the owner of Melchior Street, the typical inflation-era butcher and shop owner. He is played by Werner Krauss. Now he is officially out of meat, but behind closed doors, he distributes as much as anyone wants, especially to young women and girls who do favors for him. And so he prostitutes the entire street. The second owner of Melchior Street is Frau Grafer. She is the owner of the clothing store, which is actually a hidden brothel. She is played by legendary Valeska Gerd, who was a German expressionist dancer, cabaret artist and actress. Valeska was a friend of Sergei Eisenstein. In one of her interviews, she said that Eisenstein was one of the greatest loves of her life. Frau Grafer manipulates Greta. She uses fake kindness for it. She wants Greta to be one of her girls. Grafer understands that this beauty will bring her a big income. There exists an implicit contract between butcher and matchmaker. Hunger makes girls less unapproachable, and they give themselves for a piece of Argentine beef, and after that they get into the brothel. And now let's return back to girls in the queue. The first one is Greta. She is played by Greta Garbo. I think that you all know who is Greta Garbo. Greta got acquainted with Frau Grafer in the stressful situation. She experienced sexual harassment by her boss, and as a result she left the job. Her father invested all money of the family in shares which later fell in value. Greta has also a small sister. She is always hungry. Pabst managed to save Greta's honor. She escaped her clients or discouraged their desires with her sadness and good girl look. Greta returned back to her family due to the help of free people. The first is Waiter, who is played by Grigory Khmara, Ukrainian and Russian actor, silent movie star. And by the way, he was the husband of Asta Nielsen. His hero fails a lot at the beginning, but anyway, in the end he shows himself as a good man. Another man who helped Greta is American Cross officer who wants to marry this pretty girl. And finally, the third man, her father, realizes his mistakes. Greta embodies the dream of a whole generation of women in Weimar Republic. The dream which never came true in reality. Without her story, the film would be too depressive. In USA, distributors released Joyless Street only with Greta's story. The other girls' stories were cut. It is in large part due to camera work that Greta Garbo's look is so touching here. Camera moves slowly. It gives her character ethereal qualities. In most dramatic moments, even then, they used slow-mo. The second girl in the queue is Maria Lechner, played by Asta Nielsen. I will be brief. Asta Nielsen is a legend of silent movies. Because of her, silent cinema began to be taken seriously. Cinematographer Guido Sieber had been working with Asta since her early films in Denmark and had been instrumental in her rise as the iconic face of silent film emotion and eroticism. He shot her as Marie in the Joyless Street in such a way as to create the image of striking but aging femme fatale, who was at the same time emotionally complex and sympathetic. Maria Lechner is the classic femme fatale. Her character demonstrates a process of awakening, of violent female power, which is hidden in dark corners of collective soul. Her client blames her for her insensitivity, but actually Maria is full of passions and desires. Maria works as a prostitute to sponsor her lover, Egon. She found out that he is unfaithful. and she murdered her rival out of jealousy. She told a story to her client as if a gone murdered rich and noble lady, which bring wrath of justice on the head of a reckless lover. When Maria found rich and generous client, he presented her with jewelry, but she doesn't leave anything to herself. In the end of the film, Maria realizes that she actually betrayed her love, so she came to police to confess to the murder. Antisocial behavior of Maria could be explained as the rebellion in the name of love or in the name of true life. As a typical femme fatale, she is out of social context. Maria is not ready to sleep with the butcher for the piece of meat, and she doesn't take meat from her friend Elsa, who earned it this way. Even in conditions of poverty and need, her acts are honest and noble. Maria is not looking for benefits. All these factors about Maria could help us to conclude that she is a good character. And finally, the third main character, Elsa. She is played by Herta von Walter. Elsa is the most uncompromising protagonist and the most immersed in the post-war realities. The representation of this image opens the origin of women's activity in the society. This character and her fate shows us powerlessness of masculine world against social collapse and poverty. Elsa appeared in the queue for the same reason as everybody. She wanted to buy meat. She saw the butcher who disposed the crowd. She also saw that he found a piece of meat for two prostitutes who paid butcher with their bodies. But unlike the crowd which judged two prostitutes, Elsa decided to use this opportunity. But if at first time after sleeping with the butcher she by inertia returned back to her weak husband, at second time this humiliating situation causes her righteous anger. The infant child of Elsa is sick. She begged butcher for the piece of meat, but he refused. He not only refused, he mocked Elsa. After his refuse, she breaks into his house and murders him with his own cleaver. Her act broke all limits, and rampaging crowd storms brothel and butcher's shop. When Elsa runs, camera is shaking. In this way, cinematographer shows us the turmoil of her character. Not able to live like this any longer, Elsa lights the fire. She takes all the sins of patriarchy with her. Patriarchy which suppresses woman. She takes her weak husband and butcher. Elsa burns herself, but the child is left. Remember, Elsa is the allusion to the Virgin Mary. She gave it to the crowd before her death. Child symbolizes a new type of human who would be active and who would be capable of action in future. The Joyless Street manifested a new kind of innate realism in the words of Siegfried Krakauer, who praised the film. Nothing is stylized, rather it springs from the desire to watch the course events take of their own accord. Instead of arranging significant pictorial compositions, Pabst arranges real-life material with veracity as his sole object. He is the spirit of the photographer. This cool and critical view of social reality would come to be identified as new objectivity, a visual and narrative style that featured prominently in the artistic, literary, and journalistic culture of the stabilization period, and, for example, in the art of such artists as Otto Dix and George Grosz. Contemporaries could not accept this film, as they were standing too close to these events to face them with the appropriate distance. The vividness of the portrayal became a bone of contention for censors. Both locally and abroad, the film was cut. Some researchers believe that there were pornographic elements in it. Nowadays, we are lucky enough to see the longest version, which was ever revived, 2 hours and 20 minutes. And now I have to say goodbye. Thank you for watching my video. Goodbye.